Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire supported by Glenlivet Books. As the second wave subsides and we wonder whether there's going to be a third, there's a critical issue that simply hasn't got the attention it deserves. How many COVID deaths have there actually been? And this is not an academic issue. It critically affects the way the government prepares for the third wave, if there is one, and much more importantly, it critically affects the way the government responds to the catastrophe the country has suffered. My guest today is a senior data analyst who studied this subject meticulously, and she's done splendid work in Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh, Rukmini S. Rukmini, before we come to questions about the number of COVID deaths, let's clarify a few basic facts for the audience. The government claims that 92% of all deaths are registered, but in critical states, the figure is a lot less. For instance, in UP, it's just 63%, in Jharkhand, 59%, in Bihar, 52%. Doesn't that mean that in some of the most populated states of the country, the figure of registration is actually quite low?
Yes, you're right. India has made big strides in improving the registration of deaths, but just as you pointed out, some are missed. And as you've also pointed out, states with lower capacity are the ones that tend to miss more deaths. There's also the question of who is being missed in those numbers. So we know from some work on birth registration data, for example, that the poor are most likely to be missed. Those with least educated families are most likely to be missed. Muslims are more likely to be missed, while forward caste Hindus as compared to Adivasis are more likely to have birth certificates. We know this from birth certificate data. For death certificates specifically, we know, for example, that women are less likely to have death certificates compared to their share in actual deaths. So yes, this is an issue that we need to factor into our analysis to know whether what we're picking up is low mortality or just low registration.
Now, the second thing is that although registration is said to be 92%, the actual certification, medical certification by a doctor of the cause of death is just 22%. And again, it is lower in several states. For instance, in Madhya Pradesh, it's only 9%. In UP, it's 7%. In Jharkhand, 6%. In Bihar, 5%. Which means in these states that I've just named, over 90% of cases are deaths where we do not have a definitive cause of death.
So this is clearly a problem and one that even developed states have had a hard time fixing. So even in Kerala, for example, just 12% of deaths were medically certified in 2019. So it's not just a state capacity issue. People in the administration of Kerala, for example, have told me that it's become a way and it's something that's fallen by the wayside and did need to be improved long before the pandemic. Typically, this happens when a lot of deaths happen in rural areas and they take place at home, and then especially in families where there isn't property to divide up and wills and that sort of thing. Families just conduct cremations or burials, or sometimes might be too poor to do even that, and then you see bodies being put into rivers, as we've seen right now. Again, there's good reason to think that those whose deaths aren't getting medically certified are more likely to be the more disadvantaged. In 2018, we know, for example, that women made up just 38% of all medically certified deaths, which is a lot lower than their share in actual deaths. So medical certification mainly takes place in urban areas and for deaths that take place in hospitals, which tend to be things like emergencies or heart attacks rather than chronic disease. And all of that will have a role in the pandemic and is something to pay attention to. There's also a problem with how deaths are medically certified in those minority of deaths that are medically certified. Doctors typically tend to put in the proximate cause, the immediate event, like a heart attack, rather than the underlying conditions, which could be, a long-term chronic disease. And this is a problem that's happened in the past, and again is likely to affect COVID death certificates. I think you could make an argument that it's possible that medical certification improved during the pandemic. There was more awareness, more people were having to go to hospital. There was compensation in some states, so you could argue that way. But I think you could also make the counter argument, which is that you could say that hospitals were overwhelmed, there was stigma around the disease, administrative systems were overwhelmed, and in some cases not able to offer death certificates. So we aren't exactly sure about what has happened with medical certification during the pandemic. There are solutions to it. We've had smaller studies which do something called verbal autopsies, which is far after the event. Even untrained people can go and survey and interview the household, and then a team of doctors can look at what the families described of the cause of death and then put together what the real cause of death could be. The last time the government did this was in 2013, a large national survey of verbal autopsies. We haven't even seen that data yet. And of course, we've not yet had one to do with the pandemic.
Now, against this background, and I think the background is particularly important for audiences to understand, against this background, you have attempted to calculate actual COVID deaths. And you began by first calculating what is called excess death. Can you briefly explain to the audience what is this concept of excess deaths?
So officially, India has reported 4 lakh deaths from COVID, which is substantially lower than the death tolls in the US and Brazil, for example. Proportionate to its population, the death toll in India is even lower, far lower, among the lower end of countries, in fact. So doubts persist about whether India is capturing the full extent of COVID. Some of these are legacy or institutional issues, like the ones you pointed out around death registration, around medical certification, but some of it is specific to the pandemic. So, for example, we know that although there are both WHO and ICMR guidelines about including both confirmed and suspected COVID, counting them as COVID deaths, we know from reporting across the country that this is not happening. Only people who tested RT-PCR positive prior to death, then died with typical symptoms in a hospital within 14 days or so, are being counted as COVID deaths. All of this gives us good reason to think that what's happening is that COVID deaths are being undercounted. So one of the ways that, and this is something that's happening across the world, there is no country that can say with complete certainty that they are sure that they've counted COVID deaths correctly. So countries like the US and the UK too, in addition to say South Africa and Peru, what they've been doing is they look at something called all-cause mortality, which is deaths from all causes over time. This is in fact data that they release regularly, even pre-pandemic. And what excess deaths means is the difference between deaths from all causes recorded in a country in pre-pandemic years versus the deaths from all causes recorded during pandemic times. That difference between the two lines, as you can imagine it, would produce excess mortality estimates. So that's essentially what we've been trying to do here.
Now, if you go one step further and you subtract from excess deaths the official COVID tally, you get what I call missing COVID deaths. Now, I know that all of these deaths are not totally attributable to COVID, but the vast majority are. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I think so. I think if these were monsoon months, then that would complicate the issue a little, because you could worry about whether there were vector-borne diseases like malaria or dengue that were, flaring up, particularly in rural areas, and inflating these excess mortality numbers. But especially in the second wave, that's not what's happening. These are summer months where we don't normally see an uptick in mortality. I think you also would not see those sort of sharp surges in just a month or two, as we've seen in April and May 2021, if something else was going on. Then we also have data from some places like Tamil Nadu, where the cause of death has been noted. And over there, we know that although the official COVID count was just a fraction of total excess deaths, there was a large increase in deaths from, say, pneumonia, unknown causes, diabetes, all of which any public health physician right now would tell you sort of add up to missed COVID. And then finally, I think there is a sort of moral issue as well, which is that, sure, we should make sure that we are not overcounting, but there should be a deep moral commitment to ensure that we are not undercounting, and that every death, even whether it's in statistics, gets the dignity of being recognized.
But just to sum up that critical point, you agree that what I called missing deaths, the difference between excess deaths and the so-called official COVID tally, that concept of missing deaths is actually largely, if not preponderantly, COVID deaths. You do agree with that?
Yes, I do. Largely, I say yes, they are COVID deaths.
Now, over the last few weeks, we've had several missing COVID death calculations done on the basis of excess deaths, and they've been done in states like Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Karnataka, Kerala, as well as partly, not wholly, but partly in UP as well as in Delhi. You yourself did the calculations for Andhra Pradesh, for Madhya Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. Before I come to details, I'll do that in a moment's time. Briefly tell me how easy or how problematic was this exercise?
So it was not easy at all, and I think all credit should go first to journalists, including reporters from small towns, rural areas, other cities across the country, who first noted that something was off. All the reporting that we saw from crematoria, for example, maybe it could not produce precise numbers, but I think those were the first red flags that there was a mismatch going on. So full credit to those journalists first. I think following that, there has been a sort of community that's developed of journalists, some sort of whistleblowers within the system, and members of the scientific community who together have been able to extract this data and make sense of it. By law, every death is meant to be registered under the CRS. And we know that Indian states collect all cause mortality every single day through the civil registration system. This functions under the Home Ministry technically, because it's under the Registrar General of India who conducts the census. So in normal times, I would say that we're used to this data coming out 2 years late. We've just got the numbers for 2019, for example. And let me be frank that if the numbers came out in 2020, 2 years later, the 2021 numbers came 2 years later, nobody in normal times would have raised an eyebrow at all, because that's the system we've sort of got used to. But now, given that a lot of this system has gone online, journalists like me can see that these numbers are being updated every day, and then we've started pushing for these numbers to be made public. So it hasn't happened historically, but it exists now, and we can see that it can be used and made public. So given that the numbers were not forthcoming from the union government, which is still some distance away from even accepting that there's a mismatch in the numbers, many of us started working at the state level, which is to get access to state level portals on the civil registration system, get this data, and then report on it.
So, in fact, you had to find ways in which you cracked open a system that did not want to reveal the details it had. And because the central government wasn't willing to reveal what it had, you had to work through state governments. It was not an easy or simple process. It was often quite cumbersome. Am I right?
Yes, that's true, and it's particularly frustrating because many countries around the world make this data available weekly and publicly available. So, sitting here in Chennai, I can easily report on excess mortality in Peru or South Africa, but I find it impossible right now to report on excess mortality in India, and have had to develop all these state level resources. And again, I want to speak to the sort of public spiritedness of the broader journalistic community. After I did this reporting on the first 3 states, I sort of put out a broad call to other journalists who might want to do this and have access to data in their own states, and ask them to contact me, and I could walk them through the process. And this is, there's now a broad community of journalists doing this in various states, and we've all made this data public. We've made it public for anyone to look at and ask questions about.
Absolutely. You started, if I can call it a tradition, others are taking it further, and you're helping them take it further. Let's focus on 2 of the 3 states you did, Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. In Andhra Pradesh, the excess mortality between January and May this year was 34 times the official COVID death toll. In Madhya Pradesh, it was 42 times the official COVID death toll. Why is the gap so huge in these 2 states?
So one of the issues with both the CRS and with the way mortality in India is reported at all is that it's quite hard to agree on what a normal year should look like. This again places India quite differently from the rest of the world, where this would be, not the rest of the world, but let's say developed countries where this would be relatively easy to do. So what I did to come up with those initial estimates for Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh was to look at the years for which data was available, 2018 and 2019, look at them as normal years, and then look at the scale of undercounting or the scale of sort of excess mortality over that period of time. I think this is something we need to be a bit careful about, because we want to make sure that what we're picking up is not the improvement in the registration of deaths. We need to make sure that what we're picking up is an actual increase in mortality. So there's a number of ways that other researchers are working on as well, and other things that I've tried to do as well. But I would say we could say that the scale of undercounting is at least 25 times or more in these two states. At a minimum, it's about 25 times.
But can I interrupt? Can I ask, why is it so large? I mean, it is 34 times in Andhra Pradesh, 42 times in Madhya Pradesh, and those are astonishing figures. Why is it so large?
So I think one of the issues here is that these states reported very few COVID deaths officially. So that makes the number which you're multiplying up very small. Madhya Pradesh reported just 4,461 deaths from COVID in all of 2021, and Andhra Pradesh reported 3,822, much lower than other states that are even smaller, but like Tamil Nadu, which reported much more deaths. So these were very low case fatality rates compared to many other states. They were also much fewer deaths proportionate to other states. So I think that's certainly part of the problem. And maybe we should have been asking the question of why these numbers were so low rather than sort of immediately congratulating states that had lower numbers. MP in particular is also a poor and rural state. So I think the question we need to ask ourselves then is whether COVID spread very deep in rural areas where healthcare was harder to come by, and if that sort of increased substantially the excess mortality numbers we're seeing.
But the one interesting thing which you said at the beginning is there's this huge gap, which, as I said, is 34 times in the case of Andhra, 42 times in the case of Madhya Pradesh, actually reflects the fact, or so you believe, that the initial reporting of COVID deaths was very poor and actually far, far lower than it should be. And in Madhya Pradesh's case, perhaps the situation is exacerbated by the rural nature where reporting anyway is bad. In contrast, for the period April 2020 to May 2021, in Tamil Nadu, and that's another state that you did, the excess deaths only exceeded the official COVID tally 6.2 times. In Karnataka, only 5.8 times. In Kerala, literally just 1.6 times. Why is the gap in these three states so much smaller than the gap in Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh?
So I think this gets at the heart of the problem with how a lot of interstate statistics are reported, according to me. And this is a problem, this is a situation where a higher number is immediately seen as a blot against that state. This applies just as much to crime statistics, for example, as it does to COVID. I think in a country where we're so far from full registration and where there are such wide differences between state capacity, I think I've now reached the point where I think higher reported numbers are a better indicator of reporting abilities than of what is being reported alone. So while we were around the first wave and after the first wave sort of surmising that the virus was running amok in richer, more urban southern states, perhaps what was happening is just that they were capturing the numbers better. More people were being tested, more people were being diagnosed and treated, and perhaps more deaths were being reported too. States with low administrative capacity might also report lower numbers, but they might also be the states that find it harder to build hospitals or hire doctors or provide oxygen. So I suspect that's a bit of what we're seeing.
But it's also, and I think this was in your answer, that there's a premium on states being honest at the very outset, because then they don't fall into the embarrassing position of someone like you doing an analysis of excess deaths and therefore missing deaths and discover that the discrepancy is very embarrassing. It's better to be honest at the outset than try and hide it and get embarrassed later on when the game is revealed. Now, because only, sorry, carry on.
If I could just respond to that, I'd say for a couple of reasons it's better. One is that you are actually in a position of treating the people who are falling sick or capturing deaths. It helps in your public health response itself if you're capturing the numbers better. But the premium part that you speak of, I think this is actually a bit of a failing in our democratic system from journalists and the media to everyone else, which is that we haven't put a premium on this yet. We still report on numbers as if they're sort of cricket statistics. That's the way we've been reporting on these numbers without factoring this difference in reporting abilities. I feel this for crime statistics as well. So I do think that we need to start incentivizing, in even if not in material ways, just in sort of moral ways, states that are doing a better job of reporting. Whether that final comeuppance will come for the other states, who knows? Because if this data is not released officially, at least that comeuppance may never even come.
That's a very well made point. We should stop treating death statistics as they were cricket statistics. They actually reflect something much deeper about our society, and we need to be much more honest and also much more introspective about them. Now, because only 92% of deaths are registered and as low as 22% actually get medical certification by a doctor, I presume it also follows that there are many more deaths taking place than we know. And if that is the case, then perhaps the gap between excess deaths and COVID deaths, officially recognized COVID deaths, will also be bigger than we realize.
Yes, so I think there are a number of reasons to think that the actual number of deaths could be higher. But given that what we're doing is comparing registered deaths with registered deaths for pandemic years with pre-pandemic years, I don't think this 92% necessarily means that excess mortality could actually be higher. In fact, what we could be actually seeing is a slight inflation in that number because of improvements in registration over time. There are other reasons to fear that we're still not getting the full picture, though. People might be less likely to register deaths during a pandemic. So administrative systems might be depressed. So I do think it's even going to take another few months, maybe June, July, August, to know the full scale of the second wave even.
In other words, this is a picture that is still fully revealing itself. We don't have a full picture as yet.
Yes, I agree.
We're coming to the end of the interview, but on the basis of the excellent work you've done yourself in Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu, and also bearing in mind work done by the Hindu, by Divya Bhaskar and Chinmay Tumbe, is it possible to assess what would be the total nationwide actual real COVID death figure? I know as of this morning, the official figure is just over 406,000. But what do you think the actual figure is?
So I do want to start by emphasizing that this is not my area of expertise, but what I will do is to relay what I know that other experts are working on. Extrapolating based on these states to the whole country is something that I don't have the expertise for, given the differences in urbanization, age rates, gender, all of that. What I have seen is that people who are working on it are roughly putting out a figure that extrapolating from the CRS would take you to something like 2.5 million deaths compared to the 400,000 that we're seeing now. There's another couple of ways that people are looking at it. One is that you look at sero surveys. So sero surveys give you the extent of the spread of infection, and we largely know how many people the proportion of people who are infected die. That gives you a sort of expected mortality number. I think that too would take you to over 1 million, 1.5 million deaths. Finally, there's a large national household survey that some people are also looking at, which again would take you in the range of 2.5 million or more deaths from largely from COVID over the first and second waves. This is work that others are working on right now.
And just to clarify, the 1 to 1.5 million figure, which is the middle one you gave, is on the basis of sero surveys and infection fatality rates. The third figure, which is national household surveys, takes you to 2.5 million, as does the first figure. But it's the first figure I just wanted you to clarify. The 2.5 million that you began by quoting, was that on the basis of excess death calculations done by different people in different states, now all put together?
Yes, that's essentially what it is. And let me also clarify that the sero survey estimates also would take you to roughly that range. I misspoke when I said 1 to 1.5, I mean 2.5. So all three sources roughly take you to the rough range of 2.5 million deaths.
And as someone who is an expert on this, do you believe that these are roughly correct?
As someone who's seen the work that's gone into putting these numbers together, they strike me as reasonably correct.
Let me then quote to you what Chinmay Tumbe wrote in an article in the Indian Express, and he was talking specifically about the second wave, not the cumulative death toll from March 2020 till today, but just the second wave, which most people estimate as something that happened February, March, up to say end of May, beginning of June. And this was what he wrote. Even the most conservative extrapolations from the available excess mortality data take the all India death toll of the second wave to over 1 million. Would you accept that?
Yes, I would. I would say that is at the conservative end of things, just as he says. I think both he and I would probably put it higher than that.
You would probably put it higher. So you would say the second wave death toll, what would you put it at?
If we're saying that 2.5 million is a roughly acceptable number so far, I think the consensus is that the second wave was much more lethal. So I think it's likely to be more than 1.5 million if we're saying it of 2.5 million. But let me be clear that this is not my area of expertise, and I shouldn't slice and dice it any more than I know.
Absolutely. But your hunch and your feeling, based upon your work and your understanding of work done by others, is that the death toll of the second wave would be 1.5 million. In other words, of the total 2.5 million that we believe have died since March last year, 1.5 million died during the second wave between roughly February, March this year, end of May, early June this year.
Yes, let me not minimize the actual mathematical and demographical work being done by others by so confidently putting out a number, but these do sound like the correct ballpark to me.
My last question. The government repeatedly claims that India's deaths per million are considerably better than those of European and American countries. But what the government doesn't say a word about, it's completely silent, is the fact that our deaths per million are considerably worse than those of all our neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, but also countries like Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia. So when COVID is over, do you think we need a formal inquiry, perhaps even a proper commission to go into the whole question of COVID deaths, as well as the way in which statistics were, I won't say manipulated, but selectively picked and given to audiences to create and support an image the government wanted to push? Do you think we need an inquiry into this whole subject?
Yes. So, what I think these new estimates do is a couple of things. One is that they place India in sort of the range of expected mortality. They place India at par with other countries, in fact. By continuously pushing the narrative that India has far lower mortality from COVID than other countries, I think what the government has sort of done is painted itself into a corner, because these new estimates, which essentially put it on par with the rest of the world, are so far from the very low numbers that the government has been talking about earlier. You've had the mathematician Murad Banaji on before. You've spoken to him, and he said something in another forum where he said, instead of, while we were asking the question about whether there was something unusual going on, exceptional going on in India, the answer now largely seems to be that it was the data that was exceptional. And I think that spike in May 2021 in particular is truly exceptional. That does not put us at par with other countries. So let me not minimize these statistics either. And I also think that people who sort of lived through the brutality, particularly of the second wave, I also don't want to minimize what they went through by making any of this sound as expected or on par. The sheer scale of what happened in May 2021 in India was nothing that numbers can easily explain. Finally, yes, I do think we need a household survey on the lines of the million death survey that we have conducted in the past and that we could easily conduct now too. We need a special survey, I believe, not a regular household survey that also asks questions about deaths. We need an urgent COVID-19 mortality survey. This is something that can be done fast, easily, cheaply, and can be done very well. Jharkhand, a very poor state with low capacity, has pulled off a decent door-to-door household survey on mortality, and it did it in 10 days. I think if we accept that there's a problem with the official numbers, a problem that other countries around the world share too, a problem that doesn't arise from sort of intentional fudging of numbers, but institutional and pandemic issues. Once we accept that problem, there's very easy, doable ways for which we have vast expertise to pull off a survey that could actually give us the right numbers.
And then, can I end by putting it like this? We owe it to the dead that honesty is the important way in which we respond to their deaths. Transparency, honesty, accuracy. We need to be truthful to them. That is the best way of respecting their memory. Hiding it, manipulating it, and deliberately reducing it would be disrespect to those who died. Would you accept that as well? It's more immoral than a data point, but would you accept it quickly?
I absolutely agree. And I would say it's not just the dead and the families of the dead. The entire country went through a form of trauma in May 2021 from what we knew of what was happening all around us. And I think we owe it to all of us that feeling is put into numbers in some ways, respected in numbers, and we're not sort of gaslit into being told that it wasn't in fact as intense as it felt. It's owed to all of us.
All right, that's a clear message to the government. Let's hope it's hearing. Let's hope it acts. Rukmini, for opening our eyes to a subject that most people haven't fully understood, I'm deeply grateful to you. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.